Okay, modelers, so today we're going to be starting on a project I've been wanting to do for a while. Being an Aussie, being an Australian, I've always wanted to build one of these. All the years I've been modelling, I haven't actually built one. So this is the Australian F111C, affectionately known in Australia as the Pig. And I've got some special markings for this one that I want to do. It's going to be in the grey scheme with the special markings on the tail. I'll open the box in a minute and show you those markings that I bought specially for this. There is markings in here for the 20th anniversary one. Sorry, not the 20th, the 30 years anniversary for the tail, but I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use these other ones because I just sort of, I've seen it years ago, that scheme, and I really like it, so that's what I'm going to build. Now this is the Hobby Boss one. I have read a few things on the net about this build. Apparently it's okay. It's got a few little fit issues apparently, but we'll see how we go as we're going through it. It's a fairly sizable project because I want to do it correctly. I want to do it nice and neat, and so it comes up the way I want it when it's finished. So anyway guys, I'll open the box here now and we'll have a quick look, a quick squeeze inside. Okay, so the markings I was telling you about is these guys here. Okay, I bought these a while ago now, and I've just been sitting there waiting for me to get around to actually doing this kit. Okay, so what it is, hopefully you can see, I'll hold this up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Get the camera to focus. Okay, you can see that there, and I'll just show you the decals themselves. So all they are really is the tail decals. Okay. And I'm really looking forward to doing this because I have seen a finished model of this and it does look really good. So just give me a minute guys, I'm going to try and refocus this camera a little bit. Okay, so that's the scheme I'm going to go with. Obviously it's grey all over, so I'm going to use a few different effects like some fading and things like that to try and bring a bit of life to that dull grey scheme. The rest of the stuff in the box, that's the colour call out for the decals that come with the kit, which I'm not going to do. I would like to get another one and go with the camo scheme too. I really like the Australian camo scheme, but that's later down the track if I live long enough to do all these models I want to do. Instruction booklet here. Now we're going through this. There's a fair bit in it. There's a fair bit of building. This one's got a few differences because it's the Australian one. There's a special little box in here with the Australian differences that are in it. Decal sheet there, we've got, I can see inside there, we've got the control panels and all that sort of stuff on there. Hopefully they're not just decals only, hopefully there are actually built-in gauges or engraved gauges into the dash that we can paint rather than using decals on them. Nice big decal sheet there, I can see all their lines, they're not step lines and things like that. Now I won't unpack this whole kit guys because there is lots of plastic in here. But when I go through this, I'll be doing the trick where I'll put a bit of tape around to label each one of these sprues like A, B, C, D, all that sort of thing. Because there's so many sprues in here, it's just going to make it easier as I go through. But to give you an idea of the size of the aircraft, these are our wings here. As you can see, they're not exactly tiny. We've got our fuselage. Because the fuselage in this one is done in sections, it'll be a little bit hard to sort of see the overall size till I start putting it together. But looking at the engravings and that on these, really nice. Now we've got a whole box here full of the Australian stuff that is there to replace the other stuff, so to make the Australian version. We do have quite a nice sprue full of engine parts there, but unfortunately we're not going to see those. They're going to be buried well and truly inside the aircraft. You can go through opening up hatches and things like that, but honestly it's not something I want to do with this kit. This one's just going to be a bit of a display model. Okay, so probably a lot of that stuff won't be painted, or if it is, it'll just be in black or whatever. The rest of it's all just details for the engines, for weapons loadouts, for wheel landing bays, and there's all our weapon sprues. So like I say, I'm not going to unpack everything now. I'll do that as I go through the build. That just gives you a rough idea what's in the kit. For the money I paid for this, I can't quite remember exactly what I paid, but I remember when I bought it I thought that, you know, it's really good value for what's actually in this kit. It's very detailed and you get a lot of stuff in there. And I didn't pay much for the extra extra decals. It was because it's only, as you see, it's one sheet with 2 little decals on it, so I think it was only like $10 or $15 or something. It wasn't a great deal, which I got from eBay. Anyway guys, I'll get started on this project, and as I go through I'll be turning the camera on and showing you bits and pieces that you need to know about. Any little tips I come up with, I'll turn the camera on. So anyway guys, let's enjoy this build. Okay modelers, so we're up to the point where I'm painting the cockpit. I've got it all together. I'll just quickly throw this one in the picture for you to have a bit of a look. That's the overall cockpit there. Now I've just done that in the dark gold grey, and now I'm going through and picking out the details. So the first thing I'm going to do is the dash, and I've already started on this. You can see some of the panels I've painted in black. Now the way to do fine detail like this is a few ways. I use a very fine Tamiya brush, and I water the paint down fairly well, so the paint's not very thick at all. It's very watery, and it's like doing a pen wash where you can go around and you can pick out the gutters in there, like the engraved in between the panels, like the little engraved sections, and to paint those squares. And all it does is puts a wash down inside there, then you can put the thicker paint through the middle. Now the individual gauges, the way I'm picking the colours is I'm going off the decal sheet here, which has got basically the colours. If you had to use the decals, it's got the colours on there, so I know basically what switches are black, which ones are white, and so on, what panels are black. I've cut out a couple because, as you can see, hopefully if I can get this to focus in there, you can see in here I couldn't paint that sort of detail, so I put the decals in that section there. I cut them out and put them there. I put a lot of the decal solution on it to make them settle right down inside there, and then I'll put some clear over the top of those gauges to make them look like gauges. So I'll just do a little bit more painting here while I've got this camera on, just to show you how I go around and pick out the detail. Now you can do this with a really fine brush like I am, or you can also do it with a toothpick. I've used both different techniques at times. So I'm just going through at the moment, picking out which one of these gauges is black. So I know this one here is black, so I just put a dot of the black on top of there like so. Oh, I know those two are black, I've already done them. This one in the middle, a little square, is black. So just a little dab on there like so. And that's all you need to do to go around and pick out the detail. Now I'll go through with the different colours, the whites, the greens, the whatever. Now when you do the greens, if you put the clear green straight over that grey, it's not going to look very good. So what I do, I normally I'll put some silver in there, but not a really bright silver, because if the aircraft is shut down, those screens will be a dark green, but they still will be transparent. So I'll have it with a darker silver underneath, and put a clear green over the top, and then I'll put some clear, some Future or Long Life, Johnson Long Life or something over the top of that to give it that glassy finish. And that's how I'll get the green panels in there. Now they still may look a little bit too bright for a real thing. Like if you get into an aircraft, look at an aircraft that when they're shut down, those green panels are normally very black. Some of them do have a green tinge to them, but it just adds a bit of life to the cockpit if you can show them in a little bit more transparent green. And it's the same with your reds and your whites and stuff like that. You can dull them right down to look like the real thing. But honestly, you want to put a bit of life in the cockpit, because the cockpit's a very dull place when an aircraft is shut down. And you can put a bit of life in it like that. And no one's, I mean, unless someone's really picky, they're not going to say, oh no, those screens shouldn't be that green, and so on. Unless you're into, like international competitions and things like that. But that's just the way I bring a cockpit to life. Now I generally don't worry too much about a wash, especially on the dash. Around the seats and things like that, I'll do a bit of a pin wash later on. I sometimes do some dry brushing as well, just to sort of highlight around the gauges. I use a lighter grey colour and just do a dry brushing over the top of them gauges, just to make them pop out a little bit more, make them stand out. But I'm going to see how this one looks once I've painted all the gauges, and if it looks okay, I won't worry about dry brushing it, because sometimes dry brushing can actually destroy the effect, especially when you go around and pick out the different panels like this, and then you try and dry brush over it, it can actually ruin the effect. So anyway guys, I'll continue on with this. I'll turn the camera back on and show you the completed cockpit, and that way you'll know how I've achieved those effects by this little bit of video. Okay guys, so I finished off the cockpit painting. I'm trying to get the focus to go in on these gauges in here. because this is what I was talking about with the really bright green and so on. Those screens there, because I put a really dull silver underneath there, those screens you can see they're green, but they're dead, they're not alive, they're not bright green. And also, once I've painted all these knobs and so on, all the gauges I've put a couple of drops of Future Clear over the top, or the Johnson Long Life, whatever you use, you know, depending on where you are. But just put a clear dab over that. The other one you can use is like your craft glue, like that dries really nice and clear. They make really good gauge covers as well, because you can put a good daub on there and it dries like a bubble over the top. It's just that the stuff I had here on hand is actually all dried up, so, but I normally use that. But it looks just as good with the Future over the top, and you can see it's got the nice glassy sort of thing over the gauges there. I'm trying to show you this part, the seats and everything. I've got to repaint down the seats, as you can see there. I've actually messed that up. The paint wasn't dry when I tried to put the dry over it, and it sort of ruined that a little bit. And the same with the seat belts, I've got to redo those as well. The paint wasn't dry when I went to go with the seat belt colour, and it just sort of smudged everything, so I'll repaint those. I won't worry about putting the video on to show you that when it's finished, but yeah, rest assured they'll be nice and neat like the rest of it when that's done. But as you can see, it comes up quite nicely. I've done a little bit of dry brushing, not a lot, just over the handles on the joysticks, a little bit over some of the gauges, a little bit onto the back of the cockpit here over these to sort of lighten them up a little bit. But the other thing you can do, you can put like dust and stuff on the floor where their boots would be, where they operate the pedals, and a little bit of wear and tear, like do a bit of dry brushing with silver or whatever. I haven't worried about this one here because like most aircraft, this is going to be buried fairly well inside. You're not going to be able to see down into there to see those effects. Some aircraft have really big canopies, they're really open cockpit, and you can see that sort of stuff. If that was the case, I'd definitely put some dust and a bit of silver down there to show the wear and tear. But anyway guys, hopefully that gives you an idea of what the cockpits come up like and how to paint cockpits. I mean, this is not the be all and end all, this is just the way I do it. You look on the net, especially here on YouTube, you can see some people painting up cockpits, and some of them are just outstanding. Some guys spend, you know, basically half the build will be just on doing the cockpit. Personally, I don't worry too much about that because, like I say, it's going to be buried inside, especially with the canopy over it. If the canopy's lifted, it might be a little bit different. But for me, what I've got there is ample for what I want to show off inside the cockpit. So anyway guys, I'll keep going along with the build. I'll turn the camera on as we need to. Okay modelers, so we're up to the part where we're starting to put the wings together now. Now with the Australian versions, I'm not sure with the other versions, maybe it's correct, maybe it's not, but with the Australian version, the inside of the flaps is all red. Like inside here will be all a really bright red colour. So that's going to be hard to paint if I put the flaps together now, like put the wings together now, and then like you have them sort of sagging when it's in the landed position, and then try and paint them red after that. So what I'm actually doing is I've test fitted these. I'll put the wings together, I'll put the flaps together, and I know I can slot those in there and push it in there, and I can get like put that in afterwards, so I don't have to put it in now. So that'll make it much easier to get the red inside there, and sort of tape it off. So I'm sort of thinking, I'm not sure which way to go here, whether to do the grey, then tape the grey off and paint the red, which may be a little bit easier, I'm not sure, or to hand paint the red. But as I go through, I'll sort of figure out what I'm going to do in that regard. And it's the same with the leading edge here. We've got the leading edge, aileron goes down, like sort of slots down, and inside here is going to be red as well. So like I say, I'm not sure. I think it might be easier to do the grey, and then tape the grey up and cut like a mask out, and then do the red afterwards. But like I say, as I go along, I'll figure that out. But just one of the tips I found is that you can actually put the wings together, put the ailerons on afterwards. Just have to do a little bit of sanding, like to get these to fit onto there. They're not actually glued. I can pull that off there. That's a nice little snug fit. So I sanded off a little bit on each side of these, just to get them to fit in there nice and snug, and I can push them down afterwards. Okay, so I can paint all this sort of stuff separate. Like this whole piece here is going to be red, so I can paint that completely separate and put it together later on. Now the inside of here's got to be red. Like I say, I'll figure out later on whether I want to do the grey first or the red first or whatever. I think if I do the red first and try and tape that off, that's going to be a little bit harder. But anyway, I'll see what I'm going to come up with afterwards. And so anyway, that's just a little tip, guys. If you're putting this aircraft together and you want those red intersection flaps and stuff like that, you can put them together afterwards. It says on the instructions to put them all together in one piece, but yeah, you can actually sort of sand it back a little bit and get a nice snug fit and put it on afterwards if you would like to do it that way. Okay, modelers, so at this point we're up to putting the engines together, and this is where you have options because there's a bit of detail in these, as you can see by these sprues here. There is a bit of detail in them, some nice moulding on the engines themselves. But the actual frame of the aircraft, well not the frame but the skin of the aircraft, is not open. So if you want to open it and show your engines anyway, you're going to have to find out what hatches open and what direction they open in, and open them up manually yourself, like cut them out and open them up. I'm not actually going to do that with this model. I don't want it to be opened. I want it to be all nice and slick and everything closed down. The only thing I want a little bit out of alignment is the flaps hanging down, so you can see the nice red inside the flaps on the main wing. So I'm going to put the engines together, but just very basically, just only the parts I really need, because they're going to be well and truly hidden inside that aircraft, and you're just not going to see them at all. The only parts you're going to see obviously is the exhaust and things like that. So I'll get on with that. But like I say, this is a part of this build where you have to make that decision. Do you want the engines to be shown? And if you do, you're going to have to do a bit of planning and work out what hatches you can and can't open and all that sort of thing. But the option's definitely available in that you've got some beautiful detail on these engines, and it does seem a bit of a shame to hide them, but with this aircraft I don't want it open. If I was building another one, like the one with the camo scheme or something, which I may do another one later on, I would probably have these open, like for maintenance or something like that. But anyway guys, that's just an option you have at this point of this build. Okay modelers, so we're pushing along now with our F111 peg, and I've got, as you can see, like the fuselage is together there, cockpit's inside there, I've got the base of the wings on there, nothing's done on the tails yet. Just a few things I wanted to bring up about the kit. Most of the fits are not too bad. There's a few small issues, like you'll have to do a little bit of filling and sanding in a few places, but not major filling like you're talking, you know, globs of putty or anything. But there are a few little fit issues with it. The main ones that I found is the escape capsule. When you put it on the top here, it just sits too proud up on here. So I've sort of filed down on the inside, put that down so it matched up fairly well. I've run some sandpaper over that to smooth it out a little bit. You have to do a little bit more work on there yet. Once you put your wings on, up underneath here, like on the edges of your fuselage, it leaves a few gaps, but nothing major. They're things that can be filled. It's just small things like that. Here, the escape capsule down on the side, you leave a little gap just in there. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. I'll try and get it to get up a little bit closer and focus for you, hopefully. Put my hand up. Okay. You can see that little bit of a gap in there. That'll just have to be filled out. But basically, everything seems to be fitting fairly well at the moment. There's a couple of things that are strange about this kit. Now, one of them is, like I spoke about earlier, with the beautiful engine detail you got in there, but there's no hatches you can open to actually show that. You can do it manually by opening hatches if you want to, but I honestly didn't want to do it with this kit. The other thing that's strange is they've got this beautiful detail up here in the nose. Now, that's really nice detail, and there's hatches to go over that, but you can't pose them open. There's no hinges or anything to pose them open. So if you want to leave those open, which I'm planning to at this stage, I'm going to have to make up the hinges and the struts and stuff myself to do it. I'm sorry about that noise in the background. Live near an airport, guys, so you're going to hear planes landing every now and then in these videos. It's the same with the radar dome. You've got all the innards are there, but there's no hinge, there's no strut or anything to leave that opened up. You've got all this nice detail, and there's sort of the instructions in the kit itself basically want you to cover it up. There's nothing there to leave it open, so it's a bit of a strange one. Now I don't want to close that in because there is some really nice detail in there. I'm going to run a little bit of lead wire and copper wire and stuff and do a bit of painting in there to bring those alive. I'm going to have them opened up, so I'll have to make some struts and hinges and so on. But I just found it really strange with this kit that they would have that nice detail and then want you to cover it up. It's a really strange thing with this kit, so just be aware of it if you're going to do this kit and you've seen photos of it done with those hatches open, all that nice detail. Just be aware you have to build your own struts and hinges and things like that because it is actually closed up. There's no parts to actually pose it open. But so far everything's building up really nicely. And there's one thing I want to bring up is I'm using a new glue at the moment. It's not brand new, it's been out for a little while. It's this stuff here that's a mere extra thin, the quick setting stuff. Now this does set fairly quick. Now what it does, it sort of vaporizes very quick, so if you put a dab of glue on there, you're only talking seconds and it'll vaporize and disappear. It does actually melt the plastic, so when you put the parts together the plastics will melt in together, so it's a nice strong bond. Once the plastics are melted and hinged together, if you use your ordinary super thin stuff, extra thin stuff, I usually leave it overnight before I try and file it or sand or anything like that with the melted plastic hanging out of it. This stuff here, about an hour and I'm able to sand it back. It's set well and truly. So even though it vaporizes quick, if you've got two parts together, run it down because it's nice and thin, it'll actually seep into the seams. Push them together so a little bit of excess comes out. Leave it for an hour and you can sand and file it off. So it's fantastic stuff. I've been using it, but I don't use it on everything. There's some parts that I find the ordinary extra thin is better for, but it's just personal preference, I guess. Small parts it's really good because I can sort of put the part in place, put a dab of glue on, bang, and it's done. It holds it pretty much instantly. With larger parts that I want to move around a little bit, you know, I don't want it to set straight away. I want to be able to move it around to make sure everything's lined up. I'll go back to the other extra thin, the original extra thin. So it's personal preference, guys, as you play with it. But I can thoroughly recommend this stuff. It's really good stuff. I love it. I've got 2 bottles of it here now. I'm going to order a couple more. So between this and the extra thin and my Revel tubes, that's about all the glue I use to put a kit together. Well, other than your super glues, obviously for photo etch and that. But I can really recommend this stuff, guys. Very good. One thing is, it's really pongy. It smells nothing like the extra thin. This is a really awful pongy smell. But I mean, even the extra thin's not that sweet to smell either. You should be in a ventilated area before you use these things. But honestly, guys, I can recommend it. Do yourself a favour, go and get yourself a bottle of it. Try it out, and I'm sure you'll find some really good uses for it, and you'll work out yourself where you want to use it and where you want to use the original extra thin compared to this. But very good stuff, guys. I was actually surprised just how quick it dried. Once I seen it melted the plastic, I thought, oh, here we go, it's going to be the same thing, we'll just have to leave it overnight. But honestly, that melted plastic had dried out really quick, and I'm sure it's something to do with the evaporation of the glue itself. The glue was obviously soaked into the plastic, and that glue will actually evaporate out of it and leave it fairly quick and dry it fairly quick. And I found with sanding it and filing and stuff, it's really nice. It's not brittle, it's not soft, and it's got a really nice strong bond. So yeah, good stuff, guys. Anyway, I'll keep cracking on with this build. As you see, all the slats and everything are left off the wings because we've obviously got to do the red on the inside. Then I'll do up some masking that before I paint the rest of it to keep the red inside there. So I'm going to leave those off at this stage. Like I said earlier in the video, when you're doing that, make sure you sort of sand down a little bit or file down a little bit where these little fine pieces go in and hang on to it, because they're a very tight fit, and you don't want to be breaking these off in the holes. If you do that, it's pretty much game over. You've got to bore it out and start again, sort of thing, make your own up. But yeah, just sand a little bit off, keep test fitting it, and you'll be fine. And that's the same with the fit issues that I found with this. Just make sure you do plenty of test fitting before you glue anything down. And I got rid of most of the issues just by test fitting and doing a little bit of filing and sanding. But so far, really impressed with the kit. Nice kit. It's a big bird. It's a beautiful big bird. I forgot how big these aircraft are actually, and yeah, they're a beautiful big bird. Anyway guys, I'll keep going, I'll crack on with this, and I'll turn the video on when I get to the next stage.